Welcome to part 3 of Advanced Vampirism Methods, Reign of Fire. So, how do I put this? I do not particularly engage in this type of practice, so I had to train myself. I had to go a little sympathetic, so I could actually make this video useful, right? This is just not, like, I know how to do all of this stuff, but a little rusty, right? Because I already have my own modus operandi when it comes to hunting for prey. So assuming you know how to do everything mentioned in the previous 2 videos, Reign of Fire. Alright, so you do what you have to. You do the counting method to get into light ritual consciousness, and then, deeper ritual consciousness. And in this setting, I'd recommend having candles nearby. If you're a child of fire, or just like have luck with it. I'm the kind of person that I could leave multiple candles in my very flammable room and just forget about them and work all day, come home, everything's fine. Now, I try not to do that, but I have done it before. And meanwhile, a cousin who's passed away, good riddance, she was weak. But yeah, she was home and set her apartment on fire with a single little tea light candle. So yeah, that happened. But yeah, if you want to have someone around for this, right, as you might be gone for a while, I'd recommend it. Another thing I'd recommend is consuming very vinegar-rich foods, right? Because we're going to do 2 things here, right? Vinegar, just get a feel for it, right? If you know how to feel the energy of something, feel and meditate on the nature of vinegar, of acid. I wouldn't recommend consuming drain cleaner, right? But if you can get something like that that's actually like, hydrofluoric acid or whatever, and just spiritually connect with it. Because every single element on Earth, every single physical object has, a spiritual counterpart. And when you absorb the spiritual energy of that counterpart, you can gain not only the nature of it spiritually, but also physically, right? Maybe not like literally becoming hydrofluoric acid, right? But, the essence of what it does physically, you can, I'm not saying integrate it, but you can learn how to mimic it. You can learn how it works to fake it till you make it, so to speak, right? It's just it's a contemplative meditation. So that's an important thing, right? Just get well acquainted, right? Even meditate with fire, right? Just do deep breath meditations, I often have, at least recently, in trying to make this video, I've meditated for a couple hours in a silent room, holding a candle in my hand, I've gotten used to the feeling of, dipping my hands in boiling water, but that's more to do with combat training and, endurance and things like that. Right now it's like 4:36 a.m. I will find a tree every morning and I'll punch it till, my knuckles start to bleed. Because I used to do that and I was able to punch bark off of trees. And, the reason I do that is because out of all the fights I've been in, oftentimes I'll find that, it hurts more for me to punch someone than it does them, right? Even if, it hurts them really badly, I'm the one who's like, oh, fuck, and, yeah, I actually, I remember I cut open my left hand because I punched someone in the teeth, and their teeth sliced through the things that connect your tendons to your knuckles, right? So I can roll my tendons over my knuckles, which is pretty cool. It reminds me of Jack Sparrow in that Pirates movie, flicking the coin across his fingers is something similar in my opinion, or at least the vibe is. And I remember my right hand, my wrist, I still need to get surgery. I broke my wrist punching someone in the face. So yeah, no, I'm just trying to get back into shape. And that kind of relates to my vampirism because, I don't want to sound like a cliche person drawing upon pop culture, but in general, broadly speaking, there are within stereotypes, right? Many video games and movies do this, but there are different casts of vampire. There are some vampires that are lovers and diplomats, some that are clerics and deeply philosophical, those that are, I don't know, what would the earth cast be? I don't fucking know. That maybe they like to build things. My kind is definitely fire cast. We are warriors. We are killers. We were created to do a job. That was to defend Atlantis, which, to most of you might seem, oh, well, Atlantis isn't around. Yes, but we did keep it around for a few thousand more years, and then we died. And, well, things happened, and Atlantis is no more. But we did do our job, and we did it quite well. And now we reincarnate and fight battles for petty humans, right? Whatever it is. The last life before this, I was in the Waffen SS, and before that, I was in the Kaiserreich, and I fought in the Roman legions under Julius Caesar. I fought beside Kublai Khan, and most of my incarnations are very European or Scythian or Mongolian, but yeah, no. My nature is kind of set in stone, right? So oftentimes when feeding on the right prey, I will channel that towards training, because I want to die tasting my own blood. I'd say that the only 2 times in my life where I really feel alive, right, where everything seems fresh, is either when I'm getting my face kicked in by someone's boot, or I'm kicking the shit out of someone with my boot, and that's just, what gets my rocks. It's just, yeah. So anyways, let's just get acquainted with the more destructive elements is what I'm trying to say. Oh, beautiful stars out. Oh, look, it's Aldebaran. Oh, one day, my love. But anyways, so, yeah. You're around fire, Now, go into this black void, the training ground, where in my first video it seemed more like a hypothetical, like a simulation, but, things are only as rigid as you make them when you go into those kind of places. And, I was kind of implying that, yes, that you're not even just imagining the animals. These animals are probably drifting in from the spirit world. But, yeah, we're going to go slightly more astral and less into this black void, like a middle ground between it. Yeah, no, you are in this black void, right? You've gone into deep ritual consciousness. Yeah. Well, now, like the previous 2 videos, imagine your body starts to rot. Starts to rot, right? And we'll go back to that rotting for 2 different methods. Now, the first method, though, right, the one we're all really here for, when your body is rotting in this void, you're decaying, the liquids are flowing, your flesh is rotting, Imagine that heat, right, leaving your body. The first video it was your liquids, and the second video it was your vapors, but now it's the heat leaving your body. The fire, the refined essence of yourself. Bring your consciousness into this warmth, right? And imagine before you a gigantic forest. It's the dry season. And you blend in with the heat of the environment, right? Now, this is tricky because a lot of things that will be affected by this you won't be able to consume, but the animals you will. Oh, most certainly. Imagine you become one with the heat. You become one with the thermal energy, right? That mugginess, that sweat drip, all that unpleasantry, the leaves cracking and breaking. Imagine you become one with it. And then imagine, feel the air begin to heat up, right? And take advantage of the trees. You may not be able to feed on them traditionally in the way I'm thinking, but just imagine the heat, right? Focus on a small part of, let's say, a branch, right? Focus your heat, your consciousness, and then watch as the branch ignites. And then the fire starts to spread all throughout the forest, right? And, your heat, or it's not even your heat, you're hijacking the heat, right, of this forest fire. You're one with it. You can't exactly feed on it, though, because these trees, despite being astral entities, are not astral creatures, and you'll find that the fire produced is impure. You are looking for that 1/10 of what the sun produces, of what 1/10 of what fire is, right? You can't consume the other 9/10. This is why we can barely feed on moonlight, but not solar energy. Unless you're a sympathetic vampire, then you're that's a completely different story now, isn't it? But imagine this fire spreads, right? And the smoke is suffocating the animals. You could hijack the smoke, right? If you transform some of the energy of yours into the mist or vapor or whatever it is, you can do what was mentioned in the Vapors of Death video, right? In combination with this, but let's focus more on the heat of the situation. Imagine as this fire reaches a deer, right? Imagine the flame that you're a part of engulfs this animal, right? It's starting to burn, its fur is singeing, right? And the blood in its body is boiling. Now imagine, your fiery being converting that animal into heat, right? All of its muscle, bone, all of that, right? Imagine willing the water out of it. Another way you could do this really is you can integrate a part of your essence, convert all the moisture into the animal into either vapor or putrefied viscous liquid, and then convert it back into fire, right? You can turn all the organic elements of the animal into whatever you want, right? But when the animal's dried out, just imagine you're breaking all of its proteins, everything, and the animal becomes pure flame till all that's left is the carbon of its bones. Now this fire that's a part of the greater flame, this is your fire. You just spread, and you keep doing this to animals. You keep doing this to them all at once, right? And they die. And you just absorb their heat, right? Their thermal energy, and convert them into thermal energy, right? Absorb that fire. And now you've spread. And imagine all of that fire right now at this point turning into a vortex, right? Turning into a tornado of souls. Not really souls, of spirits rather. And now go off on your own and start just sucking up all the life, right? Have it turn into a great flame, and then convert this heat back into organic matter, right? I don't need to go on a long tangent about how to reconstitute yourself, because, if you don't know how to, based off the previous two videos, then I doubt that you'd even be at this point to begin with, right? So, yeah, no. Imagine just reconstituting yourself, right, from pure flame back into flesh, right? Back into yourself. And you are a part of the living flame, the purified flame, right? The vampiric fire. Now, here's a fun one, right? You've mastered the element of air, turning yourself into mist, right? Being light and free flowing. You've mastered the art of water. And this is a little thing that I was going to mention in the 4th video on Earth, right? But, imagine yourself, right, turning into something like a dragon or an eagle or a bat or whatever it is, really, right? Something with wings, or even, a rotted, pussy balloon, right? Whatever it is. And carry yourself, right? Even in the form of mist, right? That's in fact a great way to practice with the previous video. Just turn into mist, right? And flow forward, right? And with this heat, right, in your mastery of breath and air, find other animals. As this fog, this cloud flows over the horizon, you see elephants, mammoths, woolly rhinos, anything, cows. Actually, leave the cows alone, please, for my sake. But, you find these animals, right? And then just like, again, you could do this in vapor form or mist form, smoke form, right? Smoke would probably be more relevant, but take on a solid form of a flying animal. In my experience, this would be a wyvern, right? And fly forward and burn everything with your vampiric fire, right? Just project it like a flamethrower, like napalm, and just watch as their life force, everything that is them, the animal's chakras, it all starts to turn back into fire, and then breathe that fire back into yourself, right? This isn't regular elemental fire that contains all of its impurities that would burn our flesh. This is the fire of life. Is the fire that makes us thrive. Breathe it in, and it'll make you stronger, right? Now, to something that's more natural to me, not that I really use this, but it's something that I don't really have to think about, whereas I have to think about the fire method. Let's go back to your body, right? You're rotting, the vapors are coming out, right? Well, imagine, if you will, this is more natural, right? Your energy, right? Your body's rotting and your vapors come out, right? Focus your consciousness on the vapors and the heat and create the next stage of matter. Superheat the gases. And this is not scientifically accurate, this is, I guess, more of an art than a science, but just turn into plasma, right? Green ectoplasm, whatever it is. For me, it would be green, right? Just superheated air, right? Superheated gas, and, because this is the astral, and this is, I guess this wouldn't strictly be plasma in the sense that we'd know it, just form yourself into acid, right? Acid, plasma, whatever, and come up with a form, a shape, right? For me, this would be a humanoid, in an androgynous shape, right? Or something that, and I tried this in the shape of a leshen, right? But yeah, whatever shape it is, you're the toxic avenger at this point. Go off into the woods, right? And feel, this hot gas and fire in your stomach, this plasma, and open your mouth and squirt it all over the animal. And watch as your acid, your stomach acid, your plasma starts to break down the animal as an external form of digestion, right? Its blood, its organs, its bones, and then it becomes a thick, viscous pile of goo. I'm melting. No, I'm melting. So yeah, like Wicked Witch of the West, and then absorb that pile of goo, make more of yourself, and then, reconstitute yourself, into something more akin to, an animal, right? whatever form you want to take, a bear, wolf, whatever, werewolf, right? And we'll get into that in the Earth video. But yeah, you know, your physical flesh, right? You look like something that would be a creature, you know, even if you're a little fucked up looking. And keep, you know, like just really constitute yourself this way, but store enough of this acid inside a pouch, inside a sac, inside your diaphragm, right? And just, this is a little theatric, right? But I would just open my mouth, and this superheated gas, this acid, would burn the inside of my mouth, right? But it's all for aesthetic. It's really intimidation. But my mouth is rotting and decaying and burning with literal xenomorph acid dripping out. And, you know, my gums are raw, you know. But again, it's just an appearance, right? Because ultimately, the thing burning your flesh is yourself. And it's, yeah, you know, you're just doing it for shits and giggles. It's not actually hurting you. But it's super scary to whatever you come across, and just start squirting at, you know, these things like a super soaker, right? You come across an animal, or could be a fae, could be an elf, could be anything that is, well, asking for it, right? Because there are rogue fae, there are elves that are not good, you know, there are all sorts of sentient spirits, right? But this is a really great time. Find some low-level prey, right? And just like a acid dragon, just like expel this all over them. Watch their skin melt. You know, you're basically at this point learning how to be an astral xenomorph, right? But yeah, just create more and more of this goo and this acid. And then a fun thing, right? Back to the first video, water, right? Water, the putrefaction of flesh, right? Or putrefaction of water, whatever. I don't even remember what I called that video. Putrefaction of water. Imagine you're just what you were doing in the first video. You are, you know, this free-flowing ocean of life, right? But instead of rotting matter, you are ketones, you are acid, you have a really sketchy pH, right? And you know, you're flowing, right? Like a great biblical flood throughout this forest. All the insects, you know, scurrying around, you know, all the little mice, whatever it is, you know, every nook, every crevice is going to be burned by this acid, even the most microscopic form of astral life, right? And it will strip the trees of their bark, and it'll make the entire forest look like the inside of a beast's stomach, which isn't too far off, because that's essentially what it is. And yeah, and after the entire place looks like a nuclear biome, then yeah. And then another aspect, another way to combine these three videos, right, is become a cloud, right, over the sky, and form raindrops, you know, putrefaction of water, but they have a very acidic pH, and then literally become a storm of acid rain, right, where this acid melts through the flesh of astral animals, and then becomes it. Like, you're becoming the flood at this point, right? You're integrating all of that into yourself. You know, and that's a simple way to put it, right? It's very direct. It's very immediate. You know, it's rather offensive. You know, it's very aggressive. You know, I feel like there's a lot more, in many ways, to the vapors, right, and water. But this fire, whew, like a hurricane, like death, like smog, yeah, it's very direct. It's very to the point. I'd say that would end this video. The reign of fire, right? You have a new vampiric method under your belt, you know, and you already know where to go, you know, where your spawn point is, reconstitute yourself, and, you know, the world flipping, and, you know, counting back from like 1 to 12 without visualizing, and then doing 1 to 12 while visualizing, and, you know, wake up, and you will feel just as refreshed as you were on the previous 2 videos, right? I know I go on side tangents a lot, and you know, a lot of you are like, oh, fucking get to the point. Well, this one was pretty simple. It's really clear cut and straightforward, and I think that would be the end of this video.